So we'll read about his own life as he narrates his previous life. Yes, please read from text 23.
O Muni, in the last millennium, I was born as a son of a certain maidservant engaged in the service of Brahmanas who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of rainy season, I was engaged in their personal service.
So in general, the sadhus won't travel during the rainy season, and they would spend the rainy season for sadhana. So they would be doing sadhana at that time. So they happened to stay, fortunately, in the house of Narad Muni, or Narada boy, and his mother and he himself personally engaged in their service. And what was the result of the service? Yeah, now the nature of these personalities are given here. Please read.
Although they were sure, go ahead.
Although they were impartial by nature, those followers of the Vedanta blessed me with their causeless mercy. As far as I was concerned, I was self-controlled and had no attachment for sports, even though I was a boy. In addition, I was not naughty and I did not speak more than required.
So as a child, he had all these qualities, and these followers of Vedanta, Vedantists or devotees, Bhakti Vedantas, so they blessed Narada boy with a causeless mercy. So he was self-controlled, not attached to sports, something very big. Especially the boys, they are very attached to sports. I remember I would almost play for 7-8 hours a day during holidays. And he was not naughty and he won't speak more than required. Because generally children are talkative by nature. So these are qualities of Narada boy. So please read.
Once, only by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by so doing, all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus, being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalist became attractive to me.
So although he was a son of a maid servant, and being a son of maid servant, he was supposed to be having lot of impious background. But despite that, he became attractive to transcendentalists, these Bhakti Vedantas, because he became purified in the heart by taking the remnants of their food. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, Bhaktapad Dhuli, Bhaktapad Jal, Bhaktabhot Uchtishta Teen Mahabal. So dust of the lotus feet of the devotee, Bhaktapad Dhuli, Bhaktapad Jal, the water which has washed the lotus feet of the devotee, and Bhakta Bhokta Uchishta, and his Uchishta or remnants. So they have a lot of power. There's one personality in Chaitanya Charitamrita who is very famous for making advancement in Krishna consciousness just by taking the remnants of the food of Vaishnavas. Somebody remembers his name? In Chaitanya Lila.
Kalidas. Kalidas
Yeah.
Prabhu.
Yes, Kalidas. So what would he do?
Prabhu, I think he has taken a vow to take the remnants of all the Vaishnavas present in Bengal. So he would just go and ask for remnants, and those who won't give, he will even hide, and then he'll take. And I think he even took the remnants from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, just by hiding.
Yes. So Jadu Thakur was there. So he won't give. Jadu Thakur was from a lower caste. So he gave mangoes to his wife. And then they took mangoes. But when you take mangoes, you have to throw away the peels and the seed. So he took both the things. And by seeing how he had so much faith on the remnants of the devotees, Mahaprabhu himself gave his remnants to Kalidas. Because he saw that he's totally impartial. He doesn't see high caste, low caste. He's just taking remnants of all the devotees. They have so much power. So they immediately purify a person. Yes, please read the next one.
O great sage, as soon as I got,
Before
O
that,
Vyasadev, O Vyasadev, in that association, and by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna. And thus, listening attentively, my taste for hearing of the personality of Godhead increased at every step.
Yeah. So by their association and by doing Shravanam from that, so he developed gradually the taste for hearing. And that's the benefit, actual benefit of association of devotees. Actual benefit of association of devotees is that we get an opportunity to realize Krishna Katha and association of devotees. That opportunity is not available otherwise. And we just keep on hearing, then slowly that taste develops. So recently, just now I'm coming from there only. I had a service of managing Bhagavad Kathamrit in our Rath Yatra. So Bhakti Yoga Nursing Maharaj was giving a class, strong class on renunciation. So one of the boys said that, Maharaj, and we are told to have a balance. We have to work also and earn also and maintain our family also and give the time to family also, and we are talking about renouncing the world. So how is it possible? So then Maharaj gave a very simple answer. He said, you keep on hearing. As you keep on hearing, gradually the renunciation will come. Gradually the heart would change. And when naturally the renunciation comes, then you can renounce. So there's an age for everything. So there's an age for accepting family life and there's an age for giving up family life. So these things will have gradually. We can't do it abruptly. So gradually what happened is, as he was listening attentively, his taste for hearing about the Lord increased. Please read the next translation, 27.
O great sage, as soon as I got a taste of the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are transcendental.
Yeah. Okay, so somebody was, Manish one poet asked. So yes, reading is also hearing. Because reading Srimad Bhagavatam or reading scriptures is like sabda in a printed form. Rather, it's important for devotees to read also, because Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, that check is always there. Because Guru and Sadhus are supposed to repeat the Shastras. So if we are firmly aware of the scriptures, we read the scriptures, then we can find whether whatever we are hearing is authentic or not. So all the things which we hear is supposed to be in line with the scriptures. So it's important to read the scriptures. So Shravanam also means reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, Dhananjay, please.
Hey Krishna Prabhuji. So I was wondering, normally it is said that if a single lady is there, then sadhus should not stay in their house, because the effect of Maya, which is even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said so. And secondly, that she was Narada mother was extremely poor, so staying 4 months with the poor lady, was it not causing any extra burden, and how she was maintaining it? So if you can throw some light, Prabhuji.
Yeah, so in general, it's like a sadhu is not supposed to associate with the women when she's like alone. But then these Bhakti Vedantas were big in number, it's not just one. And staying in a house means they may not be exactly staying in the house. It may be some sort of courtyard also. That's quite a good possibility. Nowadays, we sadhus are a little opulent, truly speaking. So we don't understand the renunciation. But in general, what would happen, like in Bengal, they have a culture of Durga Mandap. They would have a courtyard. So many times sadhus would come and they would stay in the courtyard only. So it was like a bit separate from the house, not exactly in the house. And because they were together, so Sangha, Sakti, Kali Yoga, even in Kali Yoga, it is a power when sadhus stay together. So then there was not much harm. And when it comes to extra harm, like extra burden, so in general, if we see now in city, things are different, pretty different in the cities. But in the villages, even if we go together today, like one of my services also is coordinating the village preaching here. So we have around 8-10 groups where preaching groups are there. So that they don't have money to maintain, but whenever sadhus go, they have ample amount of food, like grains and fruits and other things, vegetables, etc., by which they are able to maintain. Many times, villagers only difficulty they have when there is they have to teach their children or they have to pay for medical expenses. Apart from that, generally speaking, we don't need much money. So maintaining the sadhus wound was not different, were not very difficult. And even today, if sadhus go to some village area, as far as food is concerned, if they are little austere, they have enough food to eat. It's not very difficult. It's difficult in a city, but it's not very difficult in a village. So even today, our devotees, whenever they go for village programs, every time they get some mangoes, some other bananas, something they get. So villagers, they are very good in like charity. They can't give money, but they give a lot of fruits and other things. So not very difficult. In Pune, it's very difficult. Not in village.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Because here I had another, because I also come from a village background and I spent very long years in villages. So normally when the sadhu comes, there is always a competitions that more rich and affluent people will take them in their house. So that's why I was wondering, like, apparently she was staying in a village because it says that she used to go for milking rich man cows, something like that. So that means normally in villages, the rich man, they always take a privilege of taking the sadhus in their house. So that's why I was wondering that how comes the sadhus prefer to stay in Narada Muni's house.
Yeah. Actually, Kali Yuga sadhus are different. I'm also Kali Yuga sadhu. So generally we need a lot of facilities. But in general, we see in the ancient ages, sadhus are pretty austere. Like we find even our Sukhdev Goswami, he won't stay, he won't go near rich man. So traditionally speaking, sadhus would keep a great distance from people who are affluent and those who have rich, they're wealthy. The reason is they fear that they will get influenced by seeing these people. Nowadays, things are a bit different. It's like, no, we sadhus are also not like so pure. And that is the reason things are different. So what we understand from these sadhus, they were following the traditional system, where they would stay simply, eat simply, live simply. So then things are not very difficult. Even money is concerned, like one of my services is also to take care of these new brahmacharis and train new brahmacharis. So generally we ask them whether they have given enough finances to the parents. Their sisters are married, parents have home, etc. So one of the devotees, when we were taking his interview, so we have a lot of forms with a lot of questions to fill. So then we were, one of the questions was, what is your father's salary or father's income? So this devotee wrote 1,700. So, and he wrote 1,700 per year. That is, sorry, expenses. So he wrote expenses 1,700 per year. So I was a bit bewildered. I said, is it 1,700 per month? Have you written it wrongly? He said, no, Pro, it's 1,700 per year. Then he told that we have a normally mud house. Mud house doesn't need an AC or a heater. Nothing. It's natural. So we don't need any electricity. We have cow, we get milk, we get cow dung. So we have fuel. And we have some few katas of land. They have kata system here in Bengal. So from there we get grains, fruits, etc. The only expenses for masalas, spices. So generally for spices we have to pay. And he said that even 1,700 per year is maybe more. Even that much expenditure is not there. So then I was shocked that yes, people can stay without much money also. Sometimes we forget, but it's possible. Anyway, so sadhus also can be maintained. It's possible. And then we find this Narada boy, as he was hearing, so he even got the realization of seeing himself different from the gross and subtle bodies. So that's generally at the level of bhava. When one realizes that I'm separate from both gross and subtle bodies. Freedom from gross body, we understand it's like realization comes that I'm in the room, but I'm not the room. Like we have a realization, I am in the room, but I'm not in the room, not the room. Similarly, they have a realization that I'm in the body, but not the body. At the same time, they also realize, self-realized soul, that we are not the mind, intelligence, or ego. That means whatever I'm thinking, however I'm materially discriminating, and whatever material I'm identifying, I'm pretty different from that. So that realization comes. So Narada Muni could go up to that realization so quickly by the mercy of Bhakti Vedantas. Please read the next text, 28.
Thus, during 2 seasons, the rainy season and autumn, I had the opportunity to hear these great soul sages constantly chant the unadulterated glories of Lord Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanished.
Tada radastamo bhava kamalo badayase chetete anavidam stam satya prasidati. So that is how modes of passion and ignorance vanished and the flow of devotion service began. So slowly one comes to mode of goodness and even transcends the modes. Please read. Next, 29.
I was very much attached to those sages. I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins were eradicated in their service. In my heart, I had strong faith in them. I had subjugated the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind.
So I was very attached to the sages. So attachment to sages opens door to liberation. Prasangam madaram pasam atmana kavyo viduhu saev sadhu sukrito mukta dwaram apavritam. Prasangam madaram pasam. So those who are viduhu, those who are intelligent people, self-realized people. So they say that attachment to matter is so strong that it never becomes old, ajaram, and it's very strong. But same attachment when it is applied to the sadhus of the Lord, moksha dwaram apavritam, the doors to liberation open. So bhakti is not just an art of detachment, it's a more of a path of attachment. So more we become attached to Krishna, more we become attached to devotees, automatically we become detached from sense gratification. So that is how bhakti is more of a path of attachment than a path of detachment. So we have to become attached to Guru, Krishna, Vaishnavas, and that is how gradually we become detached from matter automatically. Yes, Gopi Mataji.
So, Praji, basically, I wanted to ask that, it's written that Narad Muni was attached to sages, and you also quoted that bhakti is a path of attachment more than detachment. But Praji, when I was reading about Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, there Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes that one of the instructions which Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj used to Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj and Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj used to mention is that one shouldn't even be attached to devotees. So how can we understand it? Like, obviously we have to be attached to devotees, is, you know, it opens the doors to liberation. But when we read their what Siddhant Thakur writes in Sajjan Toshri and other books in detail about when he writes Amar Prabhu Katha, so there he mentioned that one shouldn't, that his spiritual master instructed one shouldn't get attached to devotees as well. So how can we understand this?
Yeah. So one shouldn't be attached to devotees in the sense on a bodily platform. Like if we talk about, if you see the VCT commentaries on Kunti Devi section, Kunti Maharani section, so we'll go through it. So in Kunti Maharani section, before this verse, Tvai Mananavasya Madur Mate Pate script, Rati Madhuvata Vadda Gange Maudam Udanvati. So just before that verse, what was the verse? I just forgot. Let me see. Okay. Yes, this one. At Viswesatma Visu Modi Sokesu me Sne Pasam Idam Chinti Dranam Pandesu Vishnisu. So in 1.8.41. So there she says that please tie my affection, the ropes of affection, for Pandus and Vishnis. So then suddenly Krishna says, do you want to be detached from devotees? Because you're supposed to be attached to devotees. How can you become detached from devotees? And then she says, no. I'm talking about the material side. And then she speaks 42. Let my affection towards you move as Ganga moves toward the ocean. That means my whatever obstructs my flow of devotion towards you, those things should be removed. So the material side of the attachment to devotees, that may obstruct, that has to be removed, but not the spiritual side. At the same time, we also have to understand that what principles have to apply at what level. Initially, till we are on the bodily platform, it's better to be attached to the devotees even materially than to be attached to someone else. It's like not a very good quote, but generally it's set for grasthas that no, they say that some devotees say that better to be attached to your wife than to be attached to others' wife. So till you have that level of detachment where you can see totally yourself free from the body, then better to have attachment for dharma. Now slowly we transcend it. Otherwise, what happens is premature detachment many times boomerangs. It becomes more worse. Especially we have seen in the case of youth preaching, when new boys come, somehow they don't understand that they don't discriminate between austerity and devotion. So they follow too much of austerities, and most of them, those who follow severe austerities, they destroy their bodies. And then they are not able to do even the minimum sadhana which they would have done before. So they would be sleeping at 10, getting at 1. And then after some time, no, body becomes so bad that they can't even attend Mangal Arati. So that's a primary and secondary should be known. So initially, balance is the best thing. Yukta har vihara. So that is the better formula for all of us.
Thank you.
Correct. And then he said, I was gentle in behavior and all my sins were eradicated in their service. So in my heart, I had a strong faith in them. As we go to the senses, and I was strictly following them with body and mind. Because even to serve the devotees, we need control over mind and senses. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult. Like in a typical way, it's like I know one devotee. It happened twice with me, where I saw little difficulty. So once it was Tamalkas Maharaj's disappearance day. I was in Mayapur, and I was doing prasadam survey. There was one new IVF devotee, Youth Forum devotee, who was serving along with me. And we were serving cake now this time. So I was going through the cake. And finally, 2 pieces of cake were remaining. And there were 2 sannyasis who were sitting. One of them was my spiritual master, one of them was my parents' spiritual master. And it was like such a golden chance for me to serve both of them. And I think finally I got an opportunity to serve both of them. And there was this IWF devotee behind me. He starts like, no, pinching me. I said, what happened? He said, Prabhu, actually there is another devotee who told me that no, keep some cake for yourself also. And I said, I will feed you a lot of cakes. Just allow me to serve them. And they said, no, Prabhu, but this cake is very nice. I had at least speak bit slowly. And so, no, Prabhu, no. If this cake goes away, now what will I do? And somehow both these sannyasis heard it. Both these devotees heard it. And when I served them cake, they didn't take the cake because they were concerned that this boy should get it. So after serving, I was feeling like, my God, why couldn't you control the Sanjay for some time? It's like, it's like a lifetime opportunity to serve these great souls, and you want this cake. So unless until we have control over mind and senses, it's difficult to serve. Simply one more devotee. He was supposed to like serve some guests. Some guests had come, and they were like, they could have sponsored a lot of money for our temple. So then when this devotee, he was like packing prasad in a tiffin, but the items were so delicious, he kept the tiffin in between. He made his own plate and he started taking prasad. And finally, when the in charge came in, he said that, where are the puris? Puris are not there. So he said that they must be there in the tiffin. But then he forgot to put them in the tiffin because he was so much allured by the prasadam, variety of prasadam. And then this devotee said, Are you don't have puris? He said, no problem, Prabhuji. We'll take the chapatis, we'll put the ghee both the side and we'll serve them. I said, no, but I want puris. So that is how it becomes difficult to serve when we don't have a control over mind and senses. So he had control over mind and senses also. And next, text 30.
As they were leaving, those Bhaktivedantists who were very kind to poor-hearted souls, instructed me in that most confidential subject, which is instructed by the personality of Godhead himself.
Yeah. So then they give the final instructions. And the confidential subject is subject of bhakti. So that's the actual confidential. Most guhya tamam, guhi tamam, as we read in Bhagavad Gita. Yes, please 31 also.
By that confidential knowledge, I could understand clearly the influence of the energy of Lord Sri Krishna, the creator, maintainer, and humiliator of everything. By knowing that, one can return to him and personally meet him.
So in this way, one can understand the influence of Krishna or both via Maya of Krishna. How so one can understand the influence of energy of the Lord and how Lord is creator, maintainer, and creator. So understanding the energy of the Lord or Maya is more of understanding the difference between body and soul. And understanding Krishna as creator, maintainer, and annihilator is more of a knowledge of Paramatma, where 3 Vishnus are primary creators, maintainers, and annihilators. And then more confidential than that is the knowledge of Lord's relationship with the devotees or Lord's dealing with the devotees. That's even more higher knowledge. And when one knows that, one can return back to him and personally meet them. So that is how he got all these sorts of knowledge. So in this way, he concisely speaks about his past life. And then he gives, he advises Vyasadeva. These are very powerful verses. It's like an instruction to Vyasadeva. What should he do? So you can repeat after me. Etat samsuchitam brahmams
Etat samsuchitam brahman
tapatraya chikitsitam
chikitsitam
yad Ishware Bhagavati
Yadishvara
karma brahmani bhavitam. Please read the translation as well as the purport.
O Brahmana, Vyasadeva, it is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and misery is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Purport. Should I read?
Please
Purport?
read. Yeah.
Sri Narada Muni personally experienced that the most feasible and practical way to open the path of salvation or get relief from all miseries of life is to hear submissively the transcendental activities of the Lord from the right and bona fide sources. This is the only remedial process. The entire material existence is full of misery. Foolish people have manufactured out of their tiny brains many remedial measures for removing the threefold miseries pertaining to the body and mind, pertaining to the natural disturbances, and in relation with other living beings. The whole world is struggling very hard to exist out of these miseries. But man do not know that without the sanction of the Lord, no plan or no remedial measures can actually bring about the desired peace and tranquility. The remedial measures to cure a patient by medical treatment is useless if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. To cross the river or the ocean by a suitable boat is no remedial measure if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. We should know for certain that the Lord is the ultimate sanctioning officer, and we must therefore dedicate our attempts to the mercy of the Lord for ultimate success, or to get rid of the obstacles on the path of success. The Lord is all pervading, all powerful, omniscient, and omnipresent. He is the ultimate sanctioning agent of all good or bad effects. We should therefore learn to dedicate our activity unto the mercy of the Lord and accept Him either as impersonal Brahm, localized Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It does not matter what one is, one must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. If one is learned scholar, scientist, philosopher, poet, etc., then he should employ his learning to establish the supremacy of the Lord. Try to study the energy of the Lord in every sphere of life. Do not decry him and try to become like him or take his position simply by fragmental accumulation of knowledge. If one is an administrator, statesman, warrior, politician, etc., then one should try to establish the Lord's supremacy in statesmanship. Fight for the cause of the Lord, as Sri Arjuna did. In the beginning, Sri Arjuna, the great fighter, declined to fight, but when he was convinced by the Lord that the fighting was necessary, Sri Arjuna changed his decision and fought for his cause. Similarly, if one is a businessman, an industrialist, an agriculturist, etc., then one should spend his hard-earned money for the cause of the Lord. Think always that the money which is accumulated is the wealth of the Lord. Wealth is considered to be the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and the Lord is Narayana, or the husband of Lakshmi. Try to engage Lakshmi in the service of Lord Narayana and be happy. That is the way to realize the Lord in every sphere of life. The best thing is, after all, to get relief from all material activities and engage oneself completely in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. But in case of the absence of such an opportunity, One should try to engage in the service of the Lord, everything for which one has a specific attraction, and that is the way of peace and prosperity. The word Samsuchitam in this stanza is also significant. One should not think for a moment that the realization of Narad was childish imagination only. It is not like that. It is so realized by the expert and erudite scholars, and that is the real import of the word Samsuchitam. Hare Krishna.
So we find here Prabhupada, this is a very, very practical purport. Like the Mata was asking a question. So Prabhupada writes a balance. See, at one place Prabhupada what he writes, actually he quotes this verse, Bala Sene Saranam Pitro Narsinga Nartha Sagatam Udandu Jitano Taptatse Tatprati Yan Shishak Tavad Vivot Anubatam to the Pichadana. Best of the doctors cannot save a diving man, best of the boats cannot cross over, they may sink. So none of them can be, or father may die in the son may die in the father's lap also. If you don't save them. So then what to do? Should we not attempt to save our bodies? Should we not use a boat when we cross the river? So then Prabhupada becomes very practical by saying. So what one has to do is, one has to connect things to Krishna. So one must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. So one doesn't have to change the position, change the things or pronounce the things so much. Rather, one employ these things in service of the Lord. So as we were talking, because actually speaking, natural detachment takes quite a good amount of time. But it's a gradual process. It's not like immediate. It's a gradual process. Like even for sannyasis, Prabhupada writes the actual qualification for sannyasi that this should be Paramatma realized. I was wondering, no, it's like too high. That means unless until you are a pure devotee, you should not become a sannyasi, or one should not take to renounce order. But then we find, actually speaking, it's a sort of requirement. Otherwise, one has to take care of other things. For example, one of the greatest problem which people in those who are very senior brahmacharis or sannyasi, what they face is problem of insufficient fulfillment of emotions. Because you keep on traveling at different places, or you become a loner. So then people have difficulty. Now, if they are connected to Paramatma, then there is no problem. You get your gross and subtle nourishment from Krishna directly. But unless and that is there is some sort of need for emotional fulfillment also. Where a person sees that these people are there, they are related to me. Otherwise, somebody becomes a sannyasi and anybody, they even share their problems with someone. They say, Maharaj, we are bewildered, it is your humility. So then all these troubles come. So that is why the process in general for most of the devotees is the process of Krishnizing things. Krishnizing the things. So the process is that whatever situation we may be, we just somehow or the other make the situation Krishna conscious, and the Prabhupada writes the best ways to hear by the process of hearing. So the process of hearing, chanting, Sravanam Kirtanam, whatever situation one may be in, one can solely Krishnaize the entire life. Because for practical reasons also, sometimes Gaurav Bhaji Maharaj would talk about renunciation. And sometimes he would say for practically for most of the people, it's like Mukher Naam Hatir Kam. You do your work from your hands, but always keep on chanting the holy names of the Lord. So that's how through transcendental sound vibration, we can always remain in contact with the internal energy of the Lord. So this is like something very practical which Prabhupada talks about. And that's how Prabhupada could accommodate so many devotees. Otherwise, if we see traditionally, someone in renounce order and doing scientific preaching is like something unthought of. It's like something we can't just think of. Or sannyasis moving in planes and using costly cars, etc. Before Bhakti Saraswati, it was never thought of that somebody can ever do it. So that it was quite a revolution. When our acharyas, they taught us to use everything in Krishna service. Because gradually, we should also develop the detachment from sense gratification, but it happens gradually, not immediately. Sasinandan Haripu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Then Pranam, yes.
Prabhuji, in this purport, Prabhupada ji is repeating 2-3 times about sanction by the Lord, or getting sanction by the Lord. Now, how do we know when we are doing things in bhakti, when we are doing service, and maybe sometimes we are in doubt whether this is sanctioned by the Lord or not? So how do we know that whatever we are doing is correct when we are in doubt and it is sanctioned by the Lord?
So, very good question. But simple solution is in this episode only. When Vyasdev was confused, what did he do?
He approached Narada Muni.
Yes, simple. So he meditated on the instructions. At the same time, he also questioned Narada Muni. So Guru, Sadhu, Shastra is the solution. So gradually, in due course of time, we are supposed to grow in Krishna consciousness. So then those things which are gross are gross. It's like grossly we understand what is sanctioned and what is not sanctioned. Like for example, if we see some meat, so is it very difficult to understand whether it is sanctioned or not sanctioned? Pretty gross. But let us say we are supposed to deal with a particular devotee in a particular way. Then a confusion may come, oh, whether it is sanctioned or not sanctioned. That becomes pretty subtle. And these are the places where we may need the guidance of some other sadhus and guru or Shiksha gurus. And we can discuss with them based on scriptures. So then things become clear. So Shastrarth, or getting guidance in terms in line with the scriptures, that is the solution. Okay, so that's the solution.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hari Hari. Okay, so that is how Narada Muni gives the solution. So that's the first solution which he gives. So best remedy for all miseries is dedicate one's activities to the service of the Lord. And Krishna also speaks in Bhagavad Gita, begin with controlling the senses. The senses are very, very gross and they're easiest to control. Easiest among senses, mind, intelligence, and ego. The easiest is the senses. So what if senses are pulling us towards sense gratification? Immediately use them or apply them in Krishna service. That is a simple solution. Okay, Manish wants to add a question. Is this Bhakti Misra Karma? Can you elaborate on your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Huh.
I'm audible, Prabhuji.
Are you audible? Yes.
So what I wanted to ask, that there are two connects. One is when Bhagwan, Lord says in Bhagavad Gita that nimitta matram tav, savasachim, that you are only instrument in my hands. If you are not doing things, it is all planned. So if you are not instrument, somebody else would somebody had to do for me. But something which has been already planned will be done. So the connect is like when we are doing things and surrendering this to Krishna, right? One thing is this in which is more prominent? Bhakti is more prominent, or
Understood. Yes, I understood your question now.
Thank you.
So basically, the highest of pure devotion service platform is Sarv Dharman Parityagya. That means give up all your varna and ashram and everything, all sort of dharmas, and whatever Guru and Krishna wants, they do. You should do it. Now, if somebody is not on that level where one doesn't consider one's gross body and subtle body's need, one just follows the instruction of Guru and Sadhu and Shastras. So for them, Krishna gives one practical step. And I would say, especially for full-time devotees like all of us, that's more practical, who always stay in ISKCON. We don't have like separate things. So for all of us, the best thing is to follow Yat Karoshi Yat Sunasi Yat Deso Yat 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 Tapasi Kontat Tat Karustadatmana. This is not Karamesra Bhakti. If it's quoted out of context, out of the lines of slokas, it is Karamesra Bhakti. But if we see within the slokas, then it means there are a lot of things which are sanctioned by the Lord. Like Prabhupada gives a lot of instructions. He gave instructions that no, there should be Bhakti Sastri, Bhakti Yoga, and all these things should be there. Some devotees should preach it. In Calcutta, I'm staying. Prabhupada said, I want that now all my disciples should make very big temple, huge and gorgeous temple here in Calcutta. His prime instructions were chanting 16 rounds following 40 principles. He said, no, hook or cook, distribute my book distribution also. So Prabhupada has given a lot of instructions. So then, in order to practice Krishna consciousness for a very long time, and for those who are full-time devotees like all of us, best thing is choose those things which are according to your nature, because they'll help us to continue in Krishna consciousness for a very long time. So then it's not pure devotion service, it's a step below, but it's higher than Karamesra Bhakti. It's something where between Karamesra Bhakti and Suddha Bhakti, pure devotion service. But even for that, Krishna says, ultimately you will come to me. If you see the next sloka to that, after Yat Kosu Yat Asnasi, that is the next sloka. So that's why for most of the people, that's more practical. And gradually when we realize that we are separate from gross and subtle bodies, then we can fully surrender, there's no problem. But till then, that's why what we have observed is, when new people come in Krishna consciousness, they are like very energetic, and they say, whatever you say, Prabhu, I'll do. And in due course of time, they understand it's difficult. Then they become practical. Then they say, Prabhu, these are the services which I like. Now I may do other services also, but I need some balance. Because I also need some services which are like, which help me to satisfy my subtle body, which help me to work according to my propensities. So we do what Krishna likes, but when there is variety or there are a lot of options, we choose one among them. Okay.
Thank you, Ravi.
Yeah. So good question. Okay, Diksha Mataji, you had a question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, my question was that, Prabhuji, nowadays, like, as Narada Muni mentioned, that dedicate one's activities to the service of the Lord, and most easiest is to use the senses. So, Prabhuji, nowadays, so many hoardings are there. Even if, like, I have found in my life that even if while practicing Krishna consciousness, while I was going through that hoarding, and while I was seeing something which was not as per the principles in Krishna consciousness, because it was displayed openly. So immediately my consciousness got polluted. At that point of time, I could not understand that how to put it. I will chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, but why did it immediately gets polluted even if I'm hearing since long? So I started feeling so guilty that why did I see and everything. So I just want to know one thing, that how at that point of time we can console ourselves, and at that point of time we can immediately come back and take to shelter of Krishna.
Yeah. So I would give some practical solutions, one or two practical solutions. So Prabhupada would say, first I will tell what Prabhupada says about it. So Prabhupada said is that just closing your eyes is not the solution. So because whenever you move in the street, men are there, women are there. 50% of the population is men, 50% is women. You just can't avoid it. But seeing with a desire to enjoy something which is prohibited. So that desire to enjoy sense gratification, it goes away gradually. It doesn't go away immediately. So on a practical level, what we should do? On a practical level, some measures which we can take grossly, we should take. Like for us brahmacharis, like in my laptop and mobile, I can't access YouTube, I can't access Facebook and all these things. We have some system, security system is there. And then I use a third-party software for putting all my classes in YouTube and Facebook. So we made all these sort of arrangements. So that's like immediate step. Now that is practical for me, it may not be practical for someone else. So one has to see practically. So similarly, grossly we try to protect, but beyond a level, ultimately what we have to do is, in due course of time, after Shravanam, Kirtanam and gradually becoming purified, we have to get rid of this desire to enjoy. Desire to enjoy sense gratification. But that will happen gradually, it doesn't happen immediately. So then we should also have patience and we should be merciful towards ourselves. In the sense, we should understand it will take time. And continue Krishna consciousness. So a lot of patience is required. So it doesn't happen immediately, it takes quite a good amount of time. Rather, many of the devotees have experienced that it takes around 30 years to come to the level of Nishta. So that means it's a long journey. So it's a long journey, so we should have a good amount of patience. So whatever practically we can take steps, we should take. Other things we should tolerate. But the main thing is, one should never give up Krishna consciousness. Rather, the definition of sadhana bhakti which Krishna gives is that Maya will pull you from one side, Krishna will pull you from other side. So Krishna said that sadhana bhakti means my devotee is firmly and thoroughly convinced that sense gratification is like poison. Still, sometimes he falls prey to sense gratification. He laments like anything, but he understands I should give it up, but he can't give it up. So it takes some time. So till then, we should tolerate our mind and senses. And even if, let us say, there's a struggle, we should continue with the struggle. So the extreme would be not caring for it at all. That's one side. And other side is sometimes people become too fanatic. So that also makes a person little impractical. Like among youths, we remember in our voice. So there were 3-4 devotees. They got a training under one professor in the same place. So after 4 or 5 days, one of our devotees, he happened to see another girl, which professor had not told. He kept her in the group only. So she came and sat next to this devotee. And then she suddenly asked this devotee who was absorbed in writing some quotes, that what did you do for last 3-4 days? And he became so fearful, he got up from the chair and he ran across the whole hall, crying out, Maya, 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 Maya. And all our devotees were like, this fellow, he will unnecessarily create a big trouble for all the devotees. So the point is, we don't have to be very fanatic. At the same time, we don't have to be very casual. So there has to be a good amount of balance. But main thing is giving up that desire to enjoy. So that happens gradually. It's not that, no, it doesn't happen. It happens. But it takes time. Many times what happens is we become very impatient and we want results immediately. So it takes time. It takes a lot of time. Okay?
Yes, Guruji, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, grossly, whatever we can avoid, we should avoid. But not always. It's like now we are going in a car, we are driving a car, and especially in Calcutta, there are such big hoardings, they practically cover the 80% of your sight. Now we just can't close the eyes and drive. If we do that, then suddenly we'll meet an accident. So the ultimate solution is to give up that desire to enjoy. Understand that ultimately my senses are meant to serve Krishna. Or one can remember some verses also. There's one very beautiful verse. Maybe this question is there, so I can narrate. Speak this person. Kamadinam katitana katita palita durnisesas tesam jata maina karuna na tripa anopasanti ustridetan atyatupate sampratam labda buddhis tamayata saranam abhyam mam niyunchamadase. So this devotee says, my dear Lord, Kamadinam katina katita. Kamadi, Kam, Krodh, Lobh. Palita Durnisesas, they have given me so many wrong instructions. And Tesam Jata Maina Karuna. They are never merciful. I have served Kam, Krodh, Lobhs in so many lifetimes, but they are not satisfied till now. Rather, on Sunday, they give me extra work. No leave on Sunday also. Na Tripa, I am not satisfied till now. Na Upasanti, and they have not become peaceful till now. My senses have not become peaceful till now. Somehow I got intelligence by which I have given up the service of my senses. That's why I have taken shelter of lotus feet. My dear Lord, please engage me in your service. So taken a vow, strong vow, that ultimately I'll serve Krishna's senses, not my own senses. That also helps. But at the same time, it takes time. It takes time.
Thank you. Rajesh, can you please mention the shloka number? Or
It is from Padyavali and it is also there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So currently I don't have Veda base with me. Somehow I couldn't put on my laptop. So some devotee can find it. It's Kamadinam. You just put Kamadinam, it will come.
thank you, Prabhuji.
Please read the next text. Text 33.
O good soul, does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by that very same thing?
Yeah. What was the example for that? Prabhupada quotes this example many times.
Prabhuji, curd and milk.
Yes. Pardon me. That is the solution. So please read the next translation also.
Thus, when all of a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which cause his perpetual bondage become the destroyer of the tree of work.
Prasanga madaram pasam atmana kavyavitu saiva sadhu sukrito moksadaram pavritam. So prasanga madaram pasam. So this verse is Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 22.16. Krishna Kusar Puma and so on, both of them sent it. So this is the verse here. So Prasanga Madara, so the same verse which I told, that when same attachment is applied for the Lord, for the devotees of the Lord, that destroys the tree of work. Ordinary food binds a person. Prasadam destroys the bondage. Ordinary service binds a person. But service offered to the Lord removes the bondage. That's why if we, of course, we already told to some devotees who attend my class, Bhakti Shastri class. So last 3-4 purports of 11th chapter are very important for devotees, especially Grahasthas. 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, last 3-4 purports. So that Prabhupada practically tells that how can all the activities of Grahasthas become pure devotion service. And that happens by the medium of Pancharatri Vidhi. Pancharatri Vidhi means deity worship. As soon as one is convinced that deities are the owner of the house, life of the Grahasthas change. And that is the reason they would put the name of the house like Radha Govind Kutir, Gaur-Nitai Kutir, Jagannath Kutir, to explain that these personalities, Radha Govind, Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra or Gaur-Nitai, they are the owner of the house, we are the servants. So in the traditional system, Vedic system, altar was the biggest thing in the house and the most prominent in the house. Now that has been replaced by television. So as soon as anybody enters in the house, they understand that these are the owner of the house. So as soon as one has consciousness that these are the owner of the house, every activity becomes Krishna conscious. Brooming in the house is brooming in the temple. It's not brooming in the house. Cooking in the house is not cooking in the house. It's cooking for the deities. It becomes bhoga cooking. Earning for the house or the family members is not earning for the house. It becomes fund collection, where you earn money for the purpose of pleasing the deities and the devotees, the family members. So every activity of a householder can become the pure devotion service, provided he's thoroughly convinced that the deities of my house are the owner of the house. So that is how it's like a activity in itself is not cause of bondage. The motive behind the activity is the cause of bondage. That is what we learn from Bhagavad Gita also. Now, what is that verse which talks about it? That when the activity is applied for Lord Vishnu, it liberates a person. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Jagartat karmano netra lokoyam karma bandhanah tadartham karma kauntya mukt sangha samachara. So when yajna is done for pleasing Lord Vishnu, it frees a person. Otherwise, karma bandhana. Otherwise, one is bound by law of karma. So that's a simple principle which we apply. Then one becomes free. Please read 34.
Thus
Thus,
when, Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Thus, when all a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which caused his perpetual bondage become the destroyer of the tree of the work.
Yeah. So when one's activities are used for dedicated to the service of the Lord, then those destroy the tree of work. And that is why for devotees, actually speaking, Vishwan Chavi Thakur explains in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu that as soon as somebody takes shelter of Guru and Krishna, starts performing devotion service, pure devotion service, under the guidance of Guru and Krishna, actually speaking, the tree of karma is uprooted. It's uprooted. So for devotee, that's why the way they suffer or enjoy is not the ordinary people suffering and enjoying. So like even when the tree is uprooted, branches, twigs, etc. don't immediately dry up. They take some time. Similarly for devotees also, prarabdha karmas are the last one to get destroyed in the holiness. Aprarabdha phalam papam putam bijam phalamukam kramane vipraliyate Vishnu bhakti ratatmana. So phalonmukham, or the manifest karmas, are the last one to get destroyed. And that's why for that devotees may suffer. But then their suffering is the suffering for the last life. It's suffering for the last life. So that's why devotee suffering is not like suffering of outsiders. And manifest karma in general, they are already designed at the time of birth. And that is why even sometimes you'll find for devotees, horoscope works. So why it works is because that is already destined at the time of birth. So then sometimes it works for devotees, but this is the last one to go off. And it takes a lot of time for burning of those karmas. Now certainly for personalities like Haridas Thakur, they could get rid of the manifest karmas also, in the sense of getting rid of that sin of being born in a Mohammedan family or beaten up by so many people. So then Lord Chaitanya personally protected him. But for ordinary devotees, they may have to suffer, but even their suffering is suffering for the last time. So that's why for devotees, the tree of work is destroyed. And if we just continue practicing Krishna consciousness, things will change. Things will change. So both the things are that we have to be strict in our own practice. At the same time, we should be very hopeful. Like many of the Prabhupada disciples, they talk about themselves that many of them, because they were from that background and they were hippies, So they took a lot of time to get rid of certain habits. Some of them took maybe decades for actually practicing 40 principles strictly. But then in due course of time, they became purified. And toward the end of life, so many devotees are going back and back to Godhead one by one. So we should have a proper faith that we also follow in their footsteps, we will go back and back to Godhead. So we just have to follow in their footsteps. We just have to follow whatever Prabhupada has given. Otherwise, sometimes devotees become impatient and then they start following some Babadis in Radha Kund. And some of them are like some of them are sincere, some of them may not be sincere. But the point is that they leave this process thinking, no, this doesn't work. They lose basically patience. Then they go to Radha Kund and they find advertisement there. 6 महीने में भगवान के दर्शन कराने वाले. This guru is going to show you Lord in 6 months. But it doesn't happen so. So it takes time and one should have patience. So whatever situation one may be, one can just get rid of those situations. Yeah. So dedicating to the service of the Lord. Text 35, you can repeat after me. Yadatra kriyate karma
Yadatra kriyate karma
bhagavat paritoshanam
bhagavat
Paritoshanam.
jnanam yattad adhinam hi
jnanam yattat adhinam hi
bhakti yoga samanvitam.
bhakti yoga samanvitam.
Please read the translation.
Whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service to the Lord, and what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. The general and popular.
Well, please don't read the purport. Actually, we are a little bit behind the time. So, when we dedicate our life, our activities for the satisfaction of the Lord, then that's called Bhakti Yoga. Very simple. And gratification of the senses, which comes through Karma Yoga, as well as realization of we are not body, we are soul, it happens automatically for devotees. So they don't have to separately endeavor for both the things. That's basically what this verse speaks about. Please read 36. While performing.
While performing. Mataji, please.
While performing duties according to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers him, his names, and his qualities.
Yeah. So that is how if one performs the duties, so then gradually what happens is one also gets the remembrance of the Lord because the senses become purified. But for most of us, we have to do both the things. So experts are those who engage both external and internal senses in the service of the Lord. So that is what Vishwanath Thakur writes in chapter number 12 of Bhagavad Gita. So for all of us, most of us, the ways Mam Tasmad Sarvesu Kalesu Mam Anusmar Yudacha. Remember Krishna and fight, both the things. So dedicate one's activities in the service of the Lord to fulfill the order of the Lord. At the same time, remember the Lord. So we should chant with our tongue, hear from our ears, pray from the heart, and do the activities with hands and legs. So that's the solution. So that is how we have to engage everything in Krishna service. And then he starts chanting the glories of Lord Vasudeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Tobhyam
Om Namo Bhagavate Tubhyam
वासुदेवाय धीमहि
Vasudevaya Dhimahi
प्रद्युम्ना अनिरुद्धाय
Pradyuman Anuruddhaya
नमः संकर्षणाय च.
Sankarshanaya Cha.
Please read that translation.
Let us all chant the glories of Vasudeva along with his plenary expansions, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshan.
Yeah. So let us worship the Chaturvyuha. So basically, when we chant the names of the Lord, we hear about him. Gradually, devotees would observe, many of the devotees may be having this experience, that always goes on the background. And that is the ideal way. It's like whole day we may be doing this service and that service. And then some kirtan is going on in the background, some holy name or some other thing is going on in the background. So gradually things change. Like maybe devotees can just, you don't have to electronically raise your hand, you can just raise your hand like this. How many devotees know sometimes you hear something and immediately you feel that somebody is saying Hari Bol. It happens sometimes. They may not be speaking Hari Bol, but now we feel that somebody is speaking Hari Bol. Yes. So it happens. Similarly, we hear someone speaking something and we suddenly feel that he's chanting Hare Krishna. Some song is going on and we feel that some kirtan is going on. So we find that devotees generally things change, especially when keep on chanting and hearing. And especially days like Ekadasi or Nezal Ekadasi, devotees chant a lot of rounds. So those times many devotees have experienced that even when they would sleep after chanting would continue even in their dreams. So that overshadows. So that is how Narada Muni in this episode, basically, he emphasizes on chanting the glories of the Lord. Even we will see in the next chapter also towards the end. Just to emphasize that chanting of the glories of the Lord, preaching the glories of the Lord, or writing of the glories of the Lord, such as writing Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasdev, is the best remedial process for crossing over the ocean of nescience. But we engage all our senses in the service of the Lord at that time. Please read 38th. You will read all three, 30, 30, and 40.
Thus, he is the actual seer who worships in the form of transcendental sound representation, the supreme personality of Godhead Vishnu, who has no material form. O Brahman, thus by the Supreme Lord Krishna, I was endowed first with the transcendental knowledge of the Lord, as inculcated in the confidential parts of the Vedas, then with the spiritual opulences, and then with his intimate loving service. Please therefore describe the Almighty Lord's activities which you have learned by your vast knowledge of the Vedas, for that will satisfy the hankerings of great learned men, and at the same time mitigate the miseries of masses of common people who are always suffering from material pangs. Indeed, there is no other way to get out of such miseries.
So by his personal experience, he says that just because I was taking shelter of the sound representation. So sound is very powerful. So if we take shelter of the sound representation of the Lord, just by that, what happened to him? He was endowed with transcendental knowledge of the Vedas, spiritual opulences, and intimate loving service of the Lord. So that's why he says that write down Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, all the people will get an opportunity to associate with transcendental sound vibration. And this transcendental sound vibration is so powerful that it will help people to transcend the three-dimensional material nature. So that is how this sound representation of the Lord is very powerful. So that ends with chapter number 5. Now I'll just tell the summary of chapter number 6, and then we'll enter in chapter number 6. So just a minute. Let's share with all of you. Yeah. So verse number 1 to 4, Vyasadeva inquires about more detail about Narada Muni. Well, he becomes pretty excited that my guru is telling about his own personal experience. And because he hears about the personal experience of the spiritual master, he wants to know in more detail. And then Narada Muni starts telling what happened after that, after the sage departed, how he got perfection of life. So he begins to tell about Lord's appearance, then Lord's instruction to Narada Muni, how Narada Muni gets perfection of life. And then he talks about conclusion from the entire narration of his own life history. Of not this life, but the previous life. So this is how chapter number 6 flows. Now we'll enter in chapter number 6. So conversation between Narada and Vyas. Please read both. You can read 1, 2, 3.
Suta said, O Brahmanas, thus hearing all about Sri Narad's birth and activity, Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God and son of Satyavati, inquired as follows. Sri Vyasadeva said, what did you, Narad, do after the departure of the sages who had instructed you in scientific transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth? O son of Brahma, how did you pass your life after initiation, and how did you attain this body, having quit your old one in due course?
Yeah. So then he inquires from him about what happened after the sages departed. We told that I got perfection of life, but I want to know in detail. I want to know in detail, what did you do after initiation? Because initiation is not the end of spiritual life, it's the beginning of spiritual life. Like especially here in Bengal, people are very interested in initiation. So often they come to our temple and say, Apni Diksha Devan, will you give Diksha? And all the people want Diksha, they all want initiation. Because their concept is, after initiation, we get rid of all the sins. Then it's Guru's worry, he will do my sadhana and I'll get perfection of life. At the time of initiation means beginning. Initial, it comes from the word initiation. So then what did you do after that? So how did you get this perfection of life, this body? Yeah. Please read 4th also.
O great
O
sage.
great sage. Should
Yes,
I?
Mother. Yes, Mother.
O great sage, time annihilates everything in due course. So how is it that this subject matter, which happened prior to this day of Brahma, is still fresh in your memory, undisturbed by time?
Yeah. So generally people lose their memory, they don't have past life memories. And here this particular pastime happened in the previous day of Brahma. Because previous day of Brahma means most of the people, especially in Swargaloka, they all are annihilated. And it's quite a good amount of time. It's 1000 Chaturyugas time before. Means after 1000 Chaturyugas, Narada Muni got an opportunity to get this body of Narada Muni. So how is that fresh in your memory? So how is it possible? And then Narada Muni starts speaking about the past time after the sage left. So please read text number 5.
Sri Narada said, the great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way.
Please read 6th also.
I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a simple woman but a maid servant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative for protection. She bound me with the tie of affection.
So what he said is that Now I had no more association with these great sages. So it is not like no, they left some email ID or WhatsApp number so that I can contact them. So I had no opportunity to ask them questions. They were not updating things on Facebook so that I can find where are they at the current time. So that's why I had to live with those instructions for the rest of my life. But at the same time, my mother was very affectionate to me. And that is why I couldn't exhibit the type of renunciation which I wanted to exhibit. So it becomes a bit difficult many times in a family. And that's why scriptures recommend for one to renounce at a particular point of time. Because within the family, if you want to exhibit austerities, it becomes a bit difficult. Like in our home also, some fun incidents happened during another Ekadasi. So all my family members are like initiated devotees. But despite that, different levels of renunciation are there. So my brother and my mother, so both of them were chanting and like whole day, and they were fasting from water also. Nirjal Ekadasi, so supposed to be Nirjal. But brother's wife and father, they couldn't like have so much renunciation, so they were taking water, etc. So every now and then my father was becoming worried about my brother. And mother was sitting and chanting there. So he would sometimes bring water, sometimes bring juice, drink something. You must be feeling very tired. You're looking so exhausted. And after some time, both mother and brother became very angry. They were telling, anyway, somehow we're trying to tolerate the thirst. On top of that, you're always showing us water again and again. So it becomes a bit difficult. But when we sit in the group of devotees where everybody is like fasting and constantly chanting day and night, it becomes so easy. So astronaut devotee things become easy. Anyway, so that is how we find that. So he was saying that it was difficult because mother was there. Yes, Dhananjay.
Hare Krishna. So this was from probably text 3 and 4 that it says the previous days of Brahma. So basically at the end of 1000 Chaturbhug, when Brahma sleeps, and so at that time all the 14 bhuvana lokas, they also annihilate, and because it also says that breathe in. So breathe in happen at the end of the life of Brahma, where Mahavishnu, everything goes in. But does it mean that this lotus flower where on the top of it Brahma is there, this also shrink in Garbhodaksha Vishnu? So this is it the cycle of breathing of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, with that the sleeping and waking up of Brahma is taking place? Truly, if you can elaborate.
Yeah. So in general, what we learn from Srimad Bhagavatam is at the end of day of Brahma, there is annihilation only till Swargaloka. So what happens is when people are not turning into devotees, Dhananjay Prabhu is telling, please become devotee, please become devotee, they don't turn up. So then Lord Anandadev becomes very angry. And because of his anger, his eyes become very red. And he tolerates the anger towards the end of day of Brahma, till the end of day of Brahma. But at the end of the day of Brahma, his anger goes beyond control. And a great fire emanates from his mouth, beginning from Padaloka. It moves up. And that Agni is called Sankarsan, which comes from Sankarsan. From Sankarsan comes 11 Rudras. And the Rudras, they destroyed everything till Swargaloka. And the people of Swargaloka, they climb to Maharloka and higher planetary systems to save themselves. So destruction is only till, actually it is more of till Bhulok and Bhavarlok, and till Swargalok. Swargalok also heat goes, yes. Swargalok also heat goes there. But above that, there is no destruction. There is no destruction of higher planetary systems above Swargaloka. So only pure personality still that place, they are destroyed. Not everyone is destroyed. But shrinking of the lotus, it seems that the end of Prardha, that is what is visible from Bhagavatam, is Prardha is 50 years of Brahma. So after the end of Prardha, after the end of 50 years of Brahma, that time it seems that the all 14 planetary systems are destroyed. It looks like that. Because the reason is that Brahma seems to be born as if he was born at the beginning of the creation. So there is something different which happens at the Parardha. But that happens 2 times. At the end of 50 years and at the end of life of Brahma. And of course, at the time of end of life of Brahma, entire thing is only annihilated. Universe is going in the body of Mahavishnu. But generally, at the end of day of Brahma, we find that only till Svargaloka things are destroyed. Okay, Dhananjay.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is just 6th. Now we'll move to 7th. Please read 7th.
She wanted to look after my maintenance properly, but because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything for me. The world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master. Hare Krishna.
So that means she wanted to maintain me, but she was not able to maintain me. And that actually happens with all of us. Like most of us, if possible, then we would like to have 48 hours in a day. So many services are there. Most of us, no, we really want to take care of the people who are sheltered under us. But then we have limitation of time. So that is how, actually speaking, Lord only has the ability to fully understand the living entity. And Lord only has the ability to fully reciprocate with the living entities. And that is the meaning of Akhil Rasamrit Murti. So Lord exactly knows how to reciprocate with the feelings of the living entities. And especially those who are preachers and they have a lot of people under them, they actually understand it. Because generally we want to talk with the devotees, we want to guide them personally, but then there is limitation of time. Sometimes some devotees, if they have to wait for days, it's so painful to see that. But then we are helpless many times. So that is how mother of Narada Muni also, she wanted to actually maintain her son very nicely. But being a dasi, a maid servant, she couldn't maintain him very properly. Please read 8th and 9th, both.
When I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in a Brahmana school. I was dependent on my mother's affection and had no experience of different lands. Number 9. Once upon a time, my poor mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent, influenced by supreme time.
Yeah. So this may be a reason. I don't know, Dhanjap was asking, how did they stay in with one woman? Looks like no, he was living in a Brahman school. So seems it's why like a servant quarter in a Brahman school. And that is why these sages came and stayed there. This can be a reason. So, but he said that I was too small, I had no experience of the different lands. And top of that, what happened is my mother was bitten by a serpent. Now let us see the response of Narada Muni. Because generally, when we are put in such circumstances, the general tendency is to blame. Sometimes we blame the Supreme Lord. But let us see what happens for Narada Muni, how he responds. Now, please read the response. And you can read 10, 11, 12, all three of them.
Okay. I
After
lived
my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns,
Sorry,
villages,
even
animal
one verse
farms.
before also. Can you
Okay,
read one verse? Yeah.
yes. I took this as the special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees, and so thinking, I started for the north. After my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, and natural forests. I passed through hills and mountains full of reservoirs of various minerals like gold, silver, and copper, and through tracts of land with reservoirs of water filled with beautiful lotus flowers, fit for the denizens of heaven, decorated with bewildered bees and singing birds.
So that is how he took it as a special mercy of the Lord. So he was thinking, oh, I was bound by the affection for the mother, and being a single son, it was my responsibility to take care of my mother. But now, because mother is not there, I'm free. So he took it as an opportunity to exhibit that renunciation. And although he had no previous experiences of moving in different tracts of land, that means a lot of troubles are going to are going to come. Like a Chanak Pandit says that person who lives away from his homeland always experiences misery, because we don't have experience of all the other different things. But he went to different places. So even in those days, there were flourishing metropolises. It's not just in new modern days. And there were towns, villages, farms, mines, and even the places which are like celebrated by the denizens of heaven. But Narada Muni was not attracted of to any one of them. He was just fixed at his goal. Yeah. Please read.
I then
as
passed alone through many forests of rushes, bamboo reeds, sharp grass, weeds, and caves, which were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, and dangerous, fearful forests, which were the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals.
You can read 14 and 15 also.
Thus, traveling, I felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. So I took a bath in a river lake and also drank water. By contacting water, I got relief from my exhaustion. After that, under the shadow of a banyan tree in an uninhabited forest, I began to meditate upon the super soul situated within, using my intelligence as I had learned from liberated souls.
So in this way, he went through all the difficult places. That means he was qualified for being a sannyasi. Because abhyam, fearlessness is the first quality of a sannyasi. So he was surrounded by snake, owls, jackals. So fear is something. If that occupies the mind, it's difficult to remember the Lord. And that is why those who are not qualified are not recommended to exhibit such sort of renunciation. Because when you go in the forest, but then we become so fearful that we are just worried about our own maintenance, and we are worried about our own life. So that is why renunciation has to be exhibited proportionally in terms of one's detachment and one's faith in the Lord. Otherwise, we have seen somehow the devotees were very renounced. So like one of the devotees very renounced. So he is just absorbed in Harikatha. So he may be discussing Harikatha for long hours. But the audience sometimes are there worried about Prasad. So then sometimes ears become closed. So generally for people to have that taste for Harikatha, it's not that easy. So it's after a long time then people get that taste for Harikatha. So that is how He did that. And after that, using his intelligence, he was focusing on the super soul. That means it was not natural, but he was practicing. He was practicing that meditation. So if one cannot practice Smaranatmika Bhakti, then one should practice Mananatmika Bhakti. Manatmika Bhakti means use your intelligence to remember the instruction of the Lord and control the senses by that. So that is why how he was meditating on the Lord again and again. So this is like a very beautiful verse. Dhyatas charanam bhojam bhava nirjita chetasa
Bhava nirjite chasa
autakantyasru kalapsasya
tapta kanthashtra kalakasya
hridi asin me saner harihi.
hrudi asin misane harihi.
Please read translation and purport both.
As soon as I began to meditate upon the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead with my mind transformed in transcendental love, tears rolled down my eyes, and without delay, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, appeared on the lotus of my heart. Purport: the word bhava is significant here. This bhava stage is attained after one has transcendental affection for the Lord. The first initial stage is called Shraddha, or the liking for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in order to increase that liking, one has to associate with the pure devotees of the Lord. The third stage is to practice the prescribed rules and regulations of devotional service. This will dissipate all sorts of misgivings and remove all personal deficiencies that hamper progress in devotional service. When all misgivings and personal deficiencies are removed, there is a standard faith in transcendental matter, and the taste for it increases in greater proportion. This stage leads to attraction, and after this, there is bhav, or the prior stage of unalloyed love for God. All the above different stages are but different stages of development of transcendental love. Being so surcharged with transcendental love, there comes a strong feeling of separation, which leads to 8 kinds of ecstasies. Tears from the eyes of devotee is an automatic reaction, and because Sri Narada Muni in his previous birth attained that stage very quickly after his departure from home, it was quite possible for him to perceive the actual presence of the Lord, which he tangibly experienced by his developed spiritual senses without material tinge.
So Prabhupada clarifies here, he tangibly experienced by development of spiritual senses. Because what happens at the level of bhava, the subtle body dissolves. We'll read in the first and when we go through the third canto. Jarayati asuva kosam nigirna manalam yatha. As the fire in the belly consumes the food, simply by the power of one's devotion, the material sense of the subtle body is dissolved. And the example is given of a coconut. When coconut is wet, that time the pulp is attached to the hard cover. But when the coconut becomes dry, it becomes detached. When the water becomes dried up. So that water is compared to the subtle body. So when the subtle body dissolves, then one can realize that I am not the body, I am in the body, but I am not the body. Like we have realized it. I am in the room, but not the room. And at that time, Suddha Sattva Visheshatma, one comes under the influence of sun with Sandhini and Ladini potency, internet potency of the Lord. And once spiritual senses start developing, till then they are in the sleeping state. You'll further find in the case of Dhruva Maharaj also. So he talks about awakening of the senses. Yo anta pravasya mama vacha mimam prasupta sanjivati akhila sakti dhara sasdhamna annam stahasta charana tarana togadin pranam namo bhagavate purusaya tubhyam. So as soon as Lord Vishnu puts his inverted conch shell in the head of Dhruv Maharaj, he says, Yuvanta parvesya vacham imam prasupta. So because of your touch, what has happened is prasuptam, all my senses which were sleeping very, very nicely, all my spiritual senses. Sanjivati, they are being brought back to life. And Akhil Sakti Sadhamna. And what has happened is that they have got they're filled with energy now. Akhil Sakti Dhara Sadhamna. Annams the Hasta Charana Sravan Togatin. So Hasta and Charan, hands and legs are the example of karmendriyas. And Sravan means ears and Tok means touch, skin. So these are example of Gyanendriyas. So all my Gyanendriyas and Karmendriyas which were spiritual and they were sleeping, now they have become awakened. Pranams Namo Bhagavate Purusantubhya. So that is how at that time what happens is such a person at the level of bhav, he gets spiritual emotions. So that is why the tears of ecstasy were rolling down the eyes. These were not just sentimental tears, but tears at the level of bhav. And then Lord appeared in the lotus of his heart. That means he was able to see Krishna within his heart, standing next to himself. Yes. And then what happened? Premati bhar nirbhinna.
Premati bhar
nirbhinna.
Kulakango ati nivritaha.
Kulakango ati nivritaha.
Ananda samplave lino.
Ananda samplave lino.
Na pasyam ubhayam mune.
Na pasyam ubhayam mune.
Please read that translation.
O Vyasadeva, at that time, being exceedingly overpowered by feelings of happiness, every part of my body became separately enlivened. Being absorbed in an ocean of ecstasy, I could not see both myself and the Lord. Purport?
Please read the purport also.
Spiritual feelings of happiness and intense ecstasies have no mundane comparison. Therefore, it is very difficult to give expression to such feelings. We can just have a glimpse of such ecstasy in the words of Sri Narada Muni. Each and every part of the body or senses has its particular function. After seeing the Lord, all the senses became fully awakened to render service unto the Lord, because in the liberated state, the senses are fully efficient in serving the Lord. As such, in that transcendental ecstasy, it so happened that the senses became separately enlivened to serve the Lord. This being so, Narad Muni lost himself in seeing both himself and the Lord simultaneously.
Yeah. So Prabhupada writes here in the like beautiful purport. So he says that such expressions happen only in very exalted state. And it has no mundane comparison. We just can't understand, is it just happiness or sadness or what is it? But that happens only when senses are fully awakened. So in the liberated stage, senses are fully efficient to serve the Lord. Because spiritual senses are meant for the service of the Lord. We are given material senses in order to enjoy sense gratification. So material senses are designed in such a way that they naturally become attracted toward the sense objects. And that is why these senses, material senses, they have to be Krishnized by using them in Krishna service. That's like saying, putting iron in fire, iron, but still it is different from fire. We generally don't see people using the molten iron the way they use the fire. Like it would take a lot of time for making chapatis only on tawa, that iron one, and not using fire. So that is how. So these senses are spiritualized senses, but naturally, spiritual senses have a nature to be engaged in Krishna service. So when Narada Muni now he regained these spiritual senses. Okay, Nidhi one Radhika Mata.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Prabhuji, I wanted to ask that in the translation it is given that being absorbed in ocean of ecstasy, I could not see both myself and the Lord. But in the last line of the purport, it is written that Narad Muni lost himself in seeing both himself and Lord simultaneously. Can you please explain these two lines? I couldn't understand them.
Yeah, so they happened subsequently one by one. Initially, he got the darshan of the Lord, but then he went in so much ecstasy that practically, because of that ecstasy, he was not able to see because of the tears. And one senses become so inert that practically speaking, one forgets the experience around. Like even Haridas Thakur talks about it. What was that verse? Yeah. Tunde Tandavani Vitunate Tundavali Labdaye Karna Krodha Kadambani Ghatayate Karnera Buddhe Vyaspraham Cheta Prangan Sangani Vijayate Sarve Indriyanam Kritim No Jane Janete Kiyad Viramrite Krishneti Varnam Dvayi. Krishneti Varnam Dvayi. I don't know what is that nectar in this two Krishna. Tunde Tandavani Vitunate Tundavali Labde. When they dance on my tongue, I feel like having thousands of tongues. Karna Krodha Kadambani Ghatayate Karnera Buddha. And when they enter in my ears, I desire to have many, many years, thousands and lakhs of years. And through the mean of ear holes, when they enter in my heart, Cheta Prangani Sangani Vijayate. When they dance on the courtyard of my heart, Sarv Indriyanam Kritim. All my senses, they become inert. And I say, that's enough. I don't want anything else. No jane janite kiyad viramriter Krishneti varnam. So I don't know what nectar is there in these two syllables, Krishna. So what we find there is that because his senses become very inert, so then he was not able to reciprocate. It happens sometimes. He becomes stunned in ecstasy. So what he's basically saying is he becomes stunned in ecstasy.
Yeah, thank you.
It happened with many people. Like even Dhruv Maharaj was not immediately able to offer prayers to the Lord. He became stunned in ecstasy. Same thing in Harmony. Please read 18th and 19th.
Transcendental form of the Lord, as it satisfies the mind's desire, and at once erases all mental incongruities. Upon losing that form, I suddenly got up, being perturbed, as is usual when one loses that which is desirable. I desired to see again the transcendental form of the Lord, but despite my attempts to concentrate upon the heart with eagerness to view the form again, I could not see him anymore, and thus dissatisfied, I was very much aggrieved.
Agree. Yeah. So in this way, after that, what Lord did is Lord disappeared. Lord is also super expert. So he created that anticipation in the heart of Narad Muni. He came, he disappeared. And that is how exactly the bhav is explained. In the level of bhav, sometimes Krishna comes, sometimes disappears. He appears and disappears. So because he disappeared, now Narad Muni was perturbed as if now the most important desirable thing of the life is lost. So he wanted to concentrate on the Lord again and again. He was again and again looking in the heart. But this time he was not able to view the form of the Lord. So that's you are dissatisfied. And this dissatisfaction is very good. We should be satisfied materially and dissatisfied spiritually. Materially, whatever Krishna gives us with the best of our efforts, we should be happy with that. And spiritually, we should be dissatisfied. We should be desiring to earn more and more. Like it was explained regarding the example of Ambrish Maharaj. Ambrish Maharaj, although he was always engaged, he engaged all his senses in the service of the Lord. Savay mana Krishna padar vindyo vacham siva konte gunanu vandane. So like that, no, he was engaged his tongue in glorifying of the Lord. Mind always absorbed in the lotus feet of the Lord. So like that, all the senses. Despite that, he took to renounce out of the life at the end. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, why? Why did he need it at all? So he said that he needed it, but like a greedy person, a greedy merchant, however money he may have, he wants to earn more and more. Money is never enough. Similarly, devotees of the Lord want to progress more and more in spiritual life. They are never satisfied. And that's why Ambrish Maharaj took to this renounce of doctor. Okay, Dhananjay Prabhu has a question.
Krishna Prabhuji. So, in the previous verses, we have seen that Narada Muni has been spiritualized by Bhakti Vedantist, and he has given him the Goetam Jnana. So, hopefully, he has given them the Bhakti Yoga. Now, here, Narada Muni is basically practicing the Dhyan Yoga, because Dhyan Yoga only for in its culminations, there's for a flash of a moment, Paramatma get realized. It takes a external form and it's realized. So how we perceive that when he has been taught by Bhakti Vedantist on Bhakti Yoga, Narad Muni was practicing Dhyan Yoga, Prabhuji.
So we find such a thing in the case of Dhruva Maharaj also. Dhruva Maharaj's case also, Narad Muni taught meditation along with practice of bhakti. So he would be chanting some mantras, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He was worshipping the deity. At the same time, he was meditating on the Lord within the heart also. So Sravanam Kirtanam is a prominent way of practicing bhakti in the Kali Yuga. But even in the previous ages, in Satyuga, the process was Kritita Dhayate Vishnu. Meditating on Lord Vishnu within the heart. And when they meditate on the Lord within the heart, doesn't mean they do only that thing. They do other things also, like deity worship, chanting of the holy names, etc. It is generally accompanied with that. So yogi's way of meditating is pretty different. It's not always the same. That's why Ashtanga Yoga taught in chapter number 6 and chapter number 8 is pretty different. Ashtanga Yoga chapter taught in chapter number 6 is actually Ashtanga Yoga only, in which the goal of a yogi is to merge in Brahman. And his meditation on Paramatma is just to help him get Brahman. Whereas in the chapter number 8, it is Yoga Mishra Bhakti, where the goal is to get Lord Narayan at the goal of one's life. Now, certainly, even chapter number 8, they are just discussing about fully focusing on bhakti alone, so on relying on Ashtanga Yoga alone. But if Ashtanga Yoga is just a part of one sadhana, then there is nothing wrong in that. So we find this is not the only process. Our process is given by Lord Chaitanya, which is like very super fast. But then there can be meditation and other things also included in the process of their sadhana. Okay, Dhananjay.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Very nectarian. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
So what I'll do is I'll show you one PPT also, maybe. This is already was in your Subodhini. I'll just show it. Make it more clear. Somehow. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Somehow my laptop got stuck. It's not moving at all. Anyway, so I'll just speak now. So next time maybe I'll show you this PowerPoint slow, because screen is stuck now. I can't move it. Ashtanga yogis, they use meditation on the Paramatma just to get rid of one's subtle body. That's all. Whereas devotees, for them, meditation on Paramatma is personal for Yoga Mishra Bhaktas. They relate with the Lord. They look at the features of the Lord. They understand that I'm the servant of the Lord. So that is how the concept is pretty different. One is using Paramatma meditation for getting liberation, and another is to see Paramatma as goal of one's life. So there's a great difference between both of them. Okay. When Mataji had the hand raise, I am not able to see now because the screen is stuck.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. It's me. One question, this desire of going back home, back to Godhead, is this due to satisfaction in material life or due to dissatisfaction in spiritual life?
Okay. Actually, desire to associate with the Lord. See, like, even going back to Godhead, why do you want to go back to Godhead?
To associate with the Lord and to serve Him.
Yeah. So if that goal is there, then that's a perfect desire. So the main thing is service to the Lord, pleasing the Lord, or which is a result of Krishna Prem. Krishna Prem is I love Krishna. Whether he accepts me, he rejects me, I'll always serve him. So we don't want to go to spiritual world just because there is kalpavrikshas. We don't have to work at all. There are no miseries there. Just go and sleep under a kalpavriksha, and then you say samosa. Suddenly samosa drops from kalpavriksha. We eat samosa. We drink Yamuna water and we take rest there. So that's not the purpose. The main purpose of all of these things may be appearing in the initial days, but ultimately devotees want to go back to Godhead because there is an opportunity to have uninterrupted service for the Lord. And such a desire is neither cultivated by attachment or detachment. That is actually cultivated in association of devotees who have that desire. So whatever desire we want to get, we should associate with the devotees who have that type of desire. Like if you want to increase our taste for chanting, we should associate with the devotees who have that taste for chanting. And personally, in my own life, by associating with the devotees who have taste for chanting, I develop some taste for chanting. So generally in Najal Ekadasi, I would chant 108 rounds, 108 rounds. But then I went to like Mayapur Institute. So there was one devotee called Kapil Muni. Some of you may be knowing, in Ujjain, because some of you are from Ujjain. So he's a very good friend of Krishna Goswami. So I saw that he was planning to chant 192 rounds on Najal Ekadasi. So then I thought, let me just try. But when I tried, since then, last 4 or 5 years, maybe 4 years like that, I've been chanting 192 rounds on Najal Ekadasi. So earlier I even never had that desire also. But as soon as devotees, it gives that desire. So desire to go back to Godhead or get Krishna Prem, associate with the Lord, they all come with us as soon of sincere sadhakas, sincere devotees. Okay, that answer your question?
Just one more question. Like, Prabhuji, many devotees say when they preach here, like through book distribution or through preaching, so they say that what is the need of going to the back home, back to Godhead, because we are serving the Lord through preaching or book distribution by like in this world only. So is this a good ideology?
So really speaking, one has to have different type of desires at different level. But in general, we say salok sashti samipya sarupya mayaputa di manam na garnanti vina mat senam jana. So even it is salok sarupya sashti samipya, any of this liberation, devotees don't accept them if there is no service for the Lord there. So ultimately, devotees want service. So it's not that devotees say we will not go back to Godhead, or we will go back to Godhead. The ultimate goal is whatever pleases Krishna, we will do that. If it pleases Krishna to go back to Godhead, we'll go there. If it pleases Krishna to be here, let us be here. So ultimate goal of the devotees, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, is Krishna Prem. Prema Pumartha Mahan. And what is that Prem? Atmendri Priti Vanja Tarvalekam Krishnendri Priti Ichha Dhare Pranam. I want to please the senses of Krishna. I want to assist Radharani, Lalita Sakhi and Rupa Mandiri. So that is the goal of all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So the point is, whatever pleases Krishna, we do that. But on the initial level, it may not be so much appealing. That's why Prabhupada would say that devotees should have desire to go back to Godhead. So that may not be very appealing in the initial stage. Like for me, really speaking, it took me a lot of years to digest that I am meant only to worry about Krishna's pleasure and not worry about my pleasure at all. So it takes a lot of time. Not that easy. So then initial days, one may have desire only to get rid of miseries of the world. Then one may get their desire to go back to Godhead. And finally, one may get a desire, that my dear Lord, I just love you whether you accept me or reject me. Whether you appear in front of me or you don't appear in front of me. So I'm made to serve you. So I'll serve you. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So it's probably time now, more than 7. So we'll end here. I'm not able to see anything because the screen is stuck. So we'll end here.
Babaji, I have a question.
Okay.
Babaji, just wanted to ask that sometimes when we are chanting, there are some passing thoughts again and again, just passing thoughts. And we are just hearing the holy name, but the thoughts are passing here and there. But at the end of the chanting, I feel there was no connection to Krishna. Babaji, how to overcome this? Because as days pass by, even if like person like me, I'm trying, but the thing is that the thoughts are keeping on passing by here and there. So focus and connection to Krishna is not felt. So how will a devotee like this progress in Krishna consciousness?
So I'll take some short-term solution, long-term solution. This is the last question. So one long-term solution to that is that we should keep on reading some book on japa and keep on practicing it. So since my initial days, I've been doing that and it works.
Prabhuji, can you repeat? Keep on reading?
Some book on holy name. Keep on reading something on holy name every day. Maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Like now, currently what I'm practicing is this living name book by Sachinandan Maharaj. That's what I'm practicing currently. So before that, I read many books. Japa Meditation by Dhanudhar Maharaj is there. And many other books are there. So that works for me personally. I just don't just read it, I apply it. And on an immediate level, actually speaking, we should Krishnaize our emotions. So what really works for me is, when nothing works, is prayerful attitude. So when I try to remember that Krishna is not different from holy name, and I'm in front of him, then I generally try to chant with that prayerful attitude. So even if the, let us say, thought mind is wandering here and there, then I pray that, my dear Lord, you are in front of me. You can only control the mind. I can't control the mind. So that prayerful attitude helps. Or a little contemplation beforehand. Contemplation that this is a golden opportunity for me to revive my relationship with Krishna. Now for another 2 hours, I'm totally going to be with Krishna alone. So let me just absorb myself in Krishna and reestablish my relationship with Krishna. So there's an opportunity when I am there, Krishna is there, no one else is there. So in that sense, I do this sort of meditation and I have that prayerful attitude. So personally for me, this always works. Other techniques may or may not work. They work for some time, doesn't work. But this is something which always works. So we are emotional beings and consciousness flows through the medium of mind. Mind means emotions. So when we direct those emotions towards Krishna, towards the holy name, so then automatically consciousness becomes connected to the holy name or absorbed in the holy name. Okay.
Thank you so much, Raji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah. So now we'll end and we'll meet tomorrow again. Chandra Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Bye.
Gopal ki Pancha Kalpatriyasa Vasundevacha
Prabhupada ki
Jai.